Hey, how are you doing? I'm gonna make a video about the prison industrial complex. Welcome back, my weirdos. I like that, weirdos. So this video is gonna be about the prison industrial complex and why it's completely fucking fucked. So America has 330 million people inside of it. Of that 330 million people, 2.2 million people
are incarcerated.
Of that 2.2 million people, 76% are in jail for non-violent drug offenders. You may be asking yourself, why is that? What's the deal with that? Well, it all started back in the Nixon era with the DEA, which is a complete fucking joke. I'm gonna link a video right here by the Infographics Show, one of my favorite channels, talking about how it's completely failed us. It has kept less than 1% of drugs off the streets, and in fact, it has exacerbated the problem tenfold. Bold change is needed. Overall, we need change in our criminal justice system. A good first step towards doing this is to start treating prisoners as human beings. I mean, yeah, they're murderers and rapists, but there are also people in there that are doing 5, 10, 15 years for having a dime bag of weed or a dub sack of cocaine. Don't look at me. I don't even like coke. It wasn't even mine. It's said that no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside of its jails. You know, a nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest. And when you look at America, we treat our poor like shit. While we're giving millionaires and billionaires tax cuts out the wazoo, we are giving scraps to a majority of people. The middle class, the American dream,
it's dead.
Now, saying that is pretty controversial. I love this country. I don't hate America, contrary to popular belief. Now, there are other free countries. Just look at, Japan, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, China. Okay, that's a bad example. America is literally number 13 in freedom. Seems a little weird for a country that touts freedom every fucking chance it gets. We lead the world in 3 things. 1, number of incarcerated people per capita. We have less than 5% of the world's population, yet we house over 28% of the world's prisoners. Why is that? Well, it all goes back to private prisons, for-profit prisons that make up to $54 per inmate per day from government subsidies. I'm going to link a video why Adam ruins everything. Adam ruins prisons. Number 2, what we lead the world in, infant mortality rate. Why is that? With our wonderful healthcare, could it be the cost that having a child is over $10,000 on average, up to $35,000, even $50,000 if there are complications? Number 3, we lead the world in adults that believe that angels are real. This is gonna be a long video. More Americans incarcerated. Reality of prison industrial complexes. In order to make money, corporate prisons are set up so that they need prisoners, and lots of them. State governments sign contracts with the correctional corporations who agree to provide a certain number of prison beds and to keep those beds filled at all times at any cost, or at least with 90% of them. It's like for-profit insurance, which is a whole other thing. They're making money off of keeping people sick, not curing them. If they don't keep the beds full, the states will still pay for them. Trying to meet these lockup quotas or minimum numbers of filled prison beds has resulted in over 2.2 million people ending up behind bars in the United States as of the year of 2014. China, with 5 times as many people in the US, has about 495,000 fewer people living in prison during the same year. In spite of that fact, the violent crime has actually decreased. There are more people in American prisons than ever before. In his article, Adam Gopnik, The Caging of America, says that in 1980 there were about 220 people incarcerated for every 100,000 Americans. But by the year 2010, the number had tripled to 731. No other country even approaches that. The vast majority of these prisoners are not in jail for violent crimes, and most are sitting in jail waiting for trial, which means innocent until proven guilty is a complete farce. Most are in for drug charges, and those people don't belong in prison. They are addicts. They belong in treatment centers, rehabs, halfway houses, institutions, not locked up behind bars. So story time, you guys. I have been to jail before. It is not a fun time. In 2017, I was arrested for possession of a controlled substance. I know everybody says this, but it really wasn't mine. It was the girl that I was with. She had a thing for coke. I hate uppers, but I had it in my cigarette pack and just forgot about it. I got pulled over. They searched me. They found it. I went straight to jail. My bond was $7,500, which means bail bondsman, you can get out for $750. I didn't have $750 at the time because I was a drug addict. Drug addicts don't tend to have a lot of money. I did 3 months in that jail. I was arrested on August 8th. I got out November 22nd of the same year, thanks to my wonderful parents hiring a paid lawyer. This is important. Public defenders do not work for you. Public defenders are paid by the state. They don't care if you're locked up or not. They don't care. They're just there to represent you because of a 200-year-old document that states that they have to. That being said, let me tell you a little story about prison. I was in there for possession of cocaine. Cocaine, which I didn't even do. My cellmate was a murderer. He was in there for 3 counts of capital murder and 1 count of premeditated murder. This was the man that I slept next to every night. Great guy. He's a fantastic guy. Except for the fact that he took 3 human lives. And that was just something that I couldn't let go of. In prison, it's different than jails. Jails are usually for waiting for trial. Prisons are after you've been sentenced. It is unanimously known that jails are notoriously worse than prisons. That being said, in jail, there's literally nothing to do. I'm just on the website. The jail has a normal capacity of 370 inmates. Their daily average population has increased from 180 to over 500. Offenses vary, but 38% are charged with probation violation or FTAs, and about a quarter are charged with some form of alcohol or drug offense. The county jail is a multifaceted environment. Not only a jail, they have a full kitchen facility which prepares over 400,000 meals per year. Drug rehabilitation program, which is a lie, they do not. Provides over 4,000 hours of community service, which they don't. A medical facility, they don't. And a separate women's facility, which they don't. These are all lies perpetuated by the website themselves. Inmates are sleeping on the ground, etc., etc. First off, the facility was built in the mid-80s to accommodate 238 prisoners. When I was there were 661 inmates. Why? Like I said, they get paid for the amount of incarcerated. 2-man cells were filled with 4 to 5 men regularly. I slept by the fucking toilet, which means it is constitutionally illegal to let prisoners or jailers sleep on the floor, even on a mat. We are required to be 6 inches off the floor because there are rats, there are
Spiders.
there are just nasty critters. And our sheriff, our wonderful sheriff, Matthew Wade, was quoted in the Anniston Star saying,
It is asking the county commission and the state legislature for help. The sheriff says their jail is overcrowded, and he's concerned that situation is only going to get worse. CBS 42 News reporter James McConaughey is live in Anniston, where he got to see the situation firsthand. James, pretty packed in there.
Yeah, that's right, Sherry. Right now, the sheriff is housing more than 70 inmates in cell blocks designed for about 30. He said he needs a solution, but resources are limited.
When you have 75 people in one section and 6 officers working, that's very dangerous. Very dangerous. There's no way to control that.
Calhoun County Sheriff Matthew Wade said this year is the first time the jail has held more than 500 inmates. Currently, they're averaging 630.
Every summer, numbers go up. We've looked at the numbers. I'm fearful that we'll go over 700 before end of August.
He said they provide mattresses for each of the inmates, but there are no bunks left, so those beds have to go on the floor. Some of them in the day room, where the lights never go out.
You can see where their tempers flare, fights go up, officer assaults go up. It just creates a dangerous situation.
Wade said the county commission did help them secure additional space at the Anniston City Jail for female inmates. 131 women were transferred, but it didn't alleviate the problem.
Part of my fear is that everybody thought, well, hey, we got the Anniston City Jail, problem fixed. It's just not so. There's 7 municipalities, state troopers, game wardens, probation and parole. They all bring people to my jail.
And he can't turn inmates away. Wade said he needs help from the county commission and the state legislature to fix the problem.
We've got to have a better funding source just overall. Crime's not going down. Doing the right thing's always hard. And this is the right thing to do, and I know they'll do it. And it's just we got to get through it and work together.
there are no inmates sleeping on the floor in CCJ. This is hearsay, and the inmates are only angry because they are locked up for a crime that they committed. In Alabama, there's a law that lets sheriffs dictate the budget to feed prisoners, and whatever is left over, they get to keep. On average, that budget is $250,000. So on second glance, I'm just going to throw a couple of stories. If you want to look at them, you can pause. But $250,000 is actually a pretty low amount on average. Like there was this one sheriff who bought a $740,000 beach house with the funds that he made from this old school law. Now, Governor Kay Ivey has since tried her best to block and get rid of this law. However, if you think that the problem is over, it's not, because it's Alabama. Not a single sheriff was arrested, and the one that was arrested ended up getting out the next day. Oh, you think I'm kidding? No. Here's the article. He got out the next day after coming up with a, quote, better plan. Do you know how much the CCJ spent on feeding its prisoners in 2017? $1.75 per day per inmate. typically what I'd get for breakfast. Let me run you down a day in the CCJ. First off, there's no library. They say that they take us outside. I was never taken outside, not once. I was in a pod, which is, imagine a really tall warehouse with about 12 cells. And there is about a 32-inch, 24-inch TV with 4 channels that the COs pick the channels. Now, there are people in there that have been there for years. And in jail, as much as I am anti-racism, race matters. You are to stick with your own kind if you do not want to get extorted, beaten up, or even killed. Now me, being a white junkie, that's all it was. I should have been in rehab, not jail. I was in there, and for the first 14 to 15 days, I was coming off of drugs, and it was literally the most agonizing and suffering experience of my life.
Naturally, the reason for this is lack of resources. They have one doctor for over 600 inmates, and it takes a while to see him. And they have about 2 to 3 nurses with that doctor. They have no drug rehabilitation program. I don't know where the newspaper article got that from, but it's laughable. Maybe they used to have one before I was arrested, but yeah, it's non-existent now. What they have now is what's called Tri-County, and they have an affiliation with the CCJ, where Tony Ham makes $275 every week from every inmate that transfers from the jail to there. And then they get that inmate on food stamps, but they don't get to keep their food. They have to give up everything that they get on food stamps to Tony Ham and to the kitchen at Tri-County. They have to give up a certain percentage of their paycheck, usually 75%, and what's left over is usually spent on delivery pizzas or, I was working Domino's delivery, and I delivered many a pizza to Tri-County. Anyway, back to the video. You get them past Drew.
I shat myself. I came in my sleep every night, and in jail, that's not something you want to happen. You have to buy tampons in jail if you're a woman. That means that women who don't have people on the outside to send them money were free bleeding. And you only get 1 pair of stripes. 1 pair. And laundry only does 1 time a week. And half the time, when you send your laundry out, you don't get it back. This is why Telemate and JPay, a third-party company, are making bank on telephone calls, commissary, and video conferencing with family, because face-to-face visits, I guess they thought, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to do video calls, but we're going to charge $7.50 for everyone for 30 minutes. Now, they do give you 1 a week, and that 1 a week was all that I could do with my parents because they're not made of money. So I got to see my parents for 30 minutes through a screen, usually trying to hide my tears and fears from the other inmates in there. Now, there are some good people in jail. Some. Like my cellmate, Richard. His lawyer told him to deny. So from being honest, honesty gets you nowhere. He spent 2 years, 11 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days sitting in that jail, rotting, while his mother had cancer. Thankfully, he was my cellmate the first time I was in. I was in 2 times. all for the same charge too. Funny how they do that, right? Thankfully, he had a collection of books that I loved. I fell in love with. This book right here saved my life. It's a trilogy by Justin Cronin. It's called The Passage. It was actually adapted into a TV show that got canceled after the first season. Big surprise. But it's a trilogy. The Passage, The 12, and City of Mirrors. I read that, Welcome to Bakersfield, which has a really fucked up gangbang scene with the 12-year-old girl. Stephen King, what the fuck? I read The Stand. I read Dark Tower. I read over 20 books within that 3 months because that's all there is to do. You are put on lockdown at 11 p.m. and whether or not there's room in the cell, they tell you to catch a cell, even if there's 3 guys in there. You go in there, you put them out by the toilet, and you deal with the cellies bitching about you being there. Unless you meet friends, which is pretty rare. Most guys will stay up all night making burritos. Burritos are something that I make now that I'm on the outside because it's cheap, filling, and delicious. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. And that was the one thing that I looked forward to every day. That was the one thing. So after lockdown, at 4:30 a.m., they would roll the doors and bring in breakfast. Breakfast usually consisting of a tray with a big piece of either unsugared oatmeal or unsalted grits, a small portion of powdered eggs, a piece of bread, jam and butter. Oh, and a milk. Milks, people like to work out in there. People would go crazy over milks. The breakfast was not palatable for the first 2 weeks, but after 2 weeks I was starving, so I succumbed and I started eating. So after about 5 a.m. to about 10:30 a.m., you literally have nothing to do. Most of the inmates will go back to their cell and go to sleep. This was the best time to watch TV because it wasn't loud and you could actually hear the dialogue. That being said, I would sit on the uncomfortable bench right in front of the TV and watch one of 4 channels. Now, there was about 3 other guys in there that would watch TV, and since I was the newbie, I didn't get to pick the channel. But honestly, Charmed with Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano, they like the girls. I ended up liking it because I had to. So about 9 o'clock, I would get tired of watching Charmed because my ass would hurt from sitting on a hard metal bench and my back would hurt from sitting straight up. So I would go back to my cell, kick back, and read a book until lunch. Now, lunch would vary between a soy burger. It was not a hamburger. It's a soy burger with cold fries, cold beans, and for some reason, sauerkraut. I never understood that. And a packet of mustard. Thanks, CCJ. People love their hamburgers. It was palatable. My favorite lunch was the hot dogs. You get 2 hot dogs that were boiled, not fried or grilled. Of course not. And you get sauerkraut, beans, and chips. Nothing to drink. You would drink out of the sink in the cell, which was
disgusting.
So after lunch, people kind of start to wake up. You'd see guys walking around in laps in the pod because there's literally nowhere else to go, doing push-ups, doing planks, whatever. I would go back to my cell, try to go to sleep, and read. Now, for the first 2 weeks, I couldn't do this. For the first 2 weeks, I was in pure agony. I was in withdrawal. They would not give me my medication. I suffered from 3 petit mal seizures leading to grand mal seizures. I watched a man in lockdown die of a stroke, and they took 18 hours to find out that he was even dead to get his corpse out of there. Look up Calhoun County Jail, Alabama, July 2018. There's a man that died of dehydration in booking. People die there all the time. That being said,
while I was there, within the 3 months I was there, I witnessed 3 fights and I was part of 2. And the fights that I saw were really violent. I mean, they had shanks that they had like broken off the bottom of their bed and sharpened and cut dudes' arms open, cut people's faces open. And finally, when my parents figured out J-Pay, which is a fucking ripoff, they put $100 on my books and I finally got commissary. It was Christmas. I got 4 bags of coffee because coffee is gold in there. And the thing is that I like the Reese's, you know, and the honey buns. They made these doo-wops, which is just diabetes. It was a honey bun with a pack of cookies mashed into a dough wrapped around it. But it was delicious. Now, store day happened on Wednesday, and that was Christmas, and you would not get any sleep that day. People would be jacked up on coffee, running around, trying to wheel and deal, because guys that didn't get money would say, hey man, if you give me 2 soups now, I'll give you 4 soups next week. And 9 times out of 10, those guys would not be able to pay their debts, and they had 2 options: either fight or get kludged out of the section. Now, kludged out means that they would get kludged out into either a different section if they're lucky, but most of the time they would be put in suicide or detox, which is where I was for the first 2.5 weeks that I was arrested, because when I was arrested, I was under the influence and I said, you're gonna have to shoot me because I'm not going to jail. They took that as a threat of self-harm. You don't get a map, you don't get stripes, you don't get clothes, you don't get anything. You get a smock, a Velcro smock. And you get to shit and piss in 2 holes in the ground in a room about 12 feet by 8 feet, filled with, sometimes you're the only guy in there, most of the time there's 4, sometimes there's 9 guys in there. And 9 times out of 10, the guys in there were there because they cashed out. They ran up a debt with the storeman in the section, getting 2 for $4s on cookies, 2 for $4s on soups, and on payday, store day, they didn't have the money, and since they can't fight, they would say they fear for their life and they would go to suicide. I went to suicide for 2.5 weeks when I first got there, and I would never go back. I would rather fight, and I did fight. A month in, there's this cat. His name was Ghost. And he was a very intimidating guy. He was schizoaffective. He did not belong in jail. He belonged in a mental institution to get treatment and help, but he didn't. And he wasn't quite there all the way. And he saw my big store bag, decided to take it since I'm just a 100-pound, 180-pound little white guy. Well, it's my food, dude. I'll fight for my food. I've been in 2 fights my whole life, and I lost both of them. But the ones in jail, I didn't lose. I bit his face, and then I throat punched a motherfucker. And then everybody ganged up on him because I was getting $200, $300 a week on my books. And they were like, don't chase the money out. Don't chase the money out. And they kludged him out. He's still there. And if I go back, he's going to be waiting on me. Now, about 4 or 5 o'clock is when dinner is served. Dinner isn't as good as anything else. You have usually, let's see, what was for dinner? My least favorite was chicken and rice. It was a circle of frozen chicken that was cooked with unsalted, unseasoned rice underneath it, with black-eyed peas was what I liked. You'd get 1 little 8-ounce glass or carton of orange juice, and that was it. But juices, oh, and I'm sorry, and a cake.
a little square. Okay, usually no icing, because the cooks there are all inmates. All the trustees, all the cleaning, they are on a skeleton crew to save money. The COs are only 8 to 12 on staff at any point. So what was called D12 was the cleaning crew or the cooking crew. And juices were valuable, because this is a funny thing. They would make julep or hooch. Now, they wouldn't give us fresh fruit, so they'd have to order sugar off the commissary. It's basically a sour mash that tastes like a dirty sock mixed with orange juice. It'd get you drunk for about 30 minutes and give you a pounding headache and make you sleep for about an hour and wake up even feeling worse. But they would charge $5 for a cup about this much. I will admit I drank some. Wasn't worth it. So after 3 months in there and after 2 fights, some near calls. Oh, the showers. The showers. There was one working shower, because it's a 2-story thing. In the bottom shower, people like to shit and piss in it because they're animals. And the water pressure, you just push down the button. You had to keep it pushed down. So they jerry-rigged a cup with a string to keep it pushed down, and the water was either freezing cold or scalding hot. There's no, gauge. And 9 times out of 10 it was freezing cold. After that, your cellmates would complain, man, you stink, take a shower. And when you're in withdrawals, that's the last thing you want to do. Deodorant was $7 on commissary, and I would always get Lady Speed Stick because it had the most aluminum zirconium in it, which means the antiperspirant, which means I didn't sweat, which means less showers. I'm talking all about this now because I don't want to go back. I've been doing so well. I finally got a proper diagnosis from my therapist. I'm on proper medication. I'm doing well. I have savings for the first time. I have my apartment. I have a wonderful girlfriend. And if I go in, they will not give me the medication that I require. And I am immunocompromised. I, have a blood disorder where my liver has cirrhosis, and my left kidney has fatty deposits and is operating at 38% capacity, which means that any day I could suffer from renal failure on top of hypothyroidism. I'm on medication for it, but they won't give it to me in jail. They won't give you anything in jail. Doesn't matter. They'll give you Imodium, maybe, if your tummy hurts after about 5 days. But by that time, your stomach doesn't hurt. And every time you see the doctor, it's $20. Fuck it. I know guys in there that got cut on their bed, and it would be a huge gash. And they'd say, $10, that's 2 bags of coffee. I'm not going to the doctor. $20, that's 4 bags of coffee. I ain't going to the doctor. It would get infected, and they'd turn septic. They'd go to the hospital and come right back. Jail is not a joke. Now, I got out on November 22nd, and the agreement was for drug court. I completed drug court 15 months of 18 months, and within the last 3 months, I was accused of selling, which I wasn't. I needed my medication. The girl wanted to date me. She was not my type. She was trash. And because I wouldn't date her, she said that I was selling my Adderall. They took her word over mine, and they locked me back up. And if you fail drug court, you're supposed to back up your whole sentence, which my whole sentence was 5 years. Thankfully, my parents got a paid lawyer, Doug G, thank God. and he got the sentence down to 6 months with 3 months served in 2017, which means I was picked up on January 26th and I got out May 8th. And the first time I was in the tan section with the child molesters. And I know it sounds horrible, the pedophiles and sex offenders, but that was actually the calmest section. Nobody bothered you, everybody read, everybody was nice. You just tried not to think of the heinous crimes that they committed to their poor, poor victims. But the second time, they want to put me in the red section, which is the Thunderdome. I'm a white boy. Now, I'm not racist, but the Thunderdome is 90% blacks, and if you're white in there, they extort you. They will call your parents telling them that they will kill you if your parents don't send them money. I saw it happen multiple times. And when I was in there the second time, there was more drugs in jail than there were on the streets. Bop, Suboxone goes for $10 on the streets. In jail, they cut it into 16ths, sell each little sliver for $10, $160 a strip. That on top of the julep, on top of, there was this guy who came in our section who brought 9 grams of methamphetamines in. And he was a kingpin, and he was going to get out any day and go to prison. So he said, I can't take this with me to prison. So he just gave it all away to everybody in the section. They offered me, and I was just like, no, I'm not touching that shit, man. I hate uppers. I told you that in the beginning. Now, it's horrible in jail. I hear prison is a lot better. The reason why I'm making this now is because on July 4th, my ex-girlfriend Liz, she no longer lives here anymore. We got her moved out, and she accused me of doing something that I didn't do, which was a domestic violence dispute. And even though I'm innocent, since I'm on probation, my probation was revoked by my PO, which means that I'm on the lam. This is what she did to me. It's not pretty. She didn't have a mark on her, and yet they took me in. And the night they took me in, they said, we're not arresting you, we're detaining you for 48 hours to separate you two. And I understood that. I got it. She's an 80-pound white girl, and I had a record, so I understood. Well, a week later, I get picked up in Walmart, and they say I have a warrant in Jefferson County for domestic violence. They arrest me. They take me to Jefferson County Jail. They don't take me to floor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, or 7, 8, or... They take me to floor 9 with the violent offenders. The scary people, the people there for rape, murder, child molesting. I was there with them. Thank God, by the grace of Wenda, she paid her entire savings. My bond was $15,000, and she got me out within 7.5 hours. I am indebted to her for the rest of my life, even if I do go back. She saved me because they told me that when I walked into the pod, I could hear people saying, oh, we got a white boy. We're going to test him. We're going to test him. No, testing is, or checking, it's this. So I was either going to fight or I was going to be a sissy. And you're goddamn right, I was going to go down swinging. This all started back in 2016 with the possession of paraphernalia charge whenever my friend overdosed on heroin that I did with her. And I called the ambulance because she was going to die. And I had lost over 8 friends, and I wasn't going to lose another one. Now, in 37 states, there's something called a Good Samaritan law. which means that if someone's overdosing and you call the police, you're immune to petty charges such as possession, trafficking, distribution. The way they got me was they came back to my house the next morning. They said, "Where are the drugs at?" I said, "I did them all." They said, "Listen, man, we can get you for attempted murder. Give us what you got." And I was stupid enough to believe them. They couldn't have got me for attempted murder. I gave them needles, they arrested me, and that was that. I was on paper. That was 2016. That was Christmas Day. And ever since then, this has been my life. In and out, probation fees, court costs, lawyer costs. I've cost my parents probably over $30,000 because of this. I'm a felon. Can't get a job hardly anywhere. It's not right. Something has to change. But I'm just some stupid kid on YouTube, right? What change can I possibly do? They're making so much money off of every inmate that they keep, because the way these private prisons work, they make their inmates work for pennies, installing solar panels, working on road construction, doing the hard labor that no one else wants to. It's slavery. It's slavery just with extra steps. That's what it is. Prison reform is necessary, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. And it's not a white or black issue, because I'm white and I still have to look out for that long arm of the law everywhere I go. I'm scared. I don't want to go back because I know that if I'm arrested, I will die. I will literally die. Over 80% of Calhoun County Jail is infected with corona. If I get it, the chances of me dying are greatly increased. Not to mention my failing left kidney, my scarred liver, and my fucked up thyroid and gallbladder. Not to mention my lack of medication that they won't give me. And I'll fall into seizure after seizure until I fall into a coma again. And they still didn't let me out on an OR bond. Have mercy. Extend my probation for 10 years. I don't care. This was a fluke. But it doesn't matter if you're found innocent or not. It's the fact that you're on probation, you catch a new charge, you're automatically motioned to revoke. Thank God I have my parents. Thank God I have Wenda. And thank God I have my lawyer. All I can do is wait and pray. The anticipation is literally killing me. I don't sleep. It's 4:17 in the morning. I have nervous breakdowns daily. Please, have mercy. Extend my probation to 10 years. Give me community service. Give me house arrest. Give me community corrections. Send me to rehab. Send me to a mental institution where I can get my medication. Anything but jail or prison, please. I don't belong there. Sorry, I know that my videos are usually fun and full of energy, but I'm scared, you guys. This might be my last video for a while.